All right, folks, it's time to jump into something new today and try out a 6 PPC bench rest rifle. 6 PPC is the king of short range bench rest, or at least I think it still is. And my grandfather has given me a gun that he bought about 20 years ago. It's a full-blown bench rest rig that's built on a custom Hall action. Apparently Hall actions are much more common in rimfire bench rest, but that's what this guy's got. It's got a Hart barrel, and the markings on the barrel say it has a .262 inch neck. The trigger is a 2-ounce jewel bench rest trigger, and it's got a fixed 36 by 40 Weaver scope on it. Now, when my grandfather first gave me the gun, the scope had a broken crosshair, so I pulled off the scope and sent it off to Weaver. I wasn't expecting much. Like, their warranty says that it's not transferable and all of that stuff, but I went ahead and shipped it in. I expected them to give me a call with a quote of how much it would be to fix it, but instead they just shipped me a new scope. That's pretty sweet. The only bad thing is I sent them a silver one and they sent back a black one, but I'm not going to complain too much. I'm just happy to have a usable scope again, and it didn't cost me a dime. So the plan for today is simply to load up a few rounds. We'll talk a little bit about reloading, and then just go out and shoot the gun. I've only shot it 10 times. I fired it a few times just to get the scope sighted in and to get some empty brass that we could play around with reloading a little bit with. But the main point of today is just to get some range time behind the gun, get a little bit more comfortable. That 2-ounce trigger is absurd. Like, you don't even feel your finger touching it and the thing goes off. So I just need to get, comfortable with the gun. And I suspect we're going to be shooting some pretty good groups. The barrel has a ton of shots on it. I mean, it's probably pretty much gone. My grandfather kept meticulous notes, so I have a record of every shot he fired through the gun. And looking at the last couple times he had it out, it still shoots great. Like, the barrel's got a lot of shots on it, but it's still shooting lots of 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3 inch groups. So that's more than good enough for us to play around with here and just have a little bit of fun. The 6 PPC is a cousin of another cartridge we shoot, the 6.5 Grendel. Here they are side by side. Both of these cartridges use the 220 Russian as a parent case. So you'll see the 6 PPC, good bit shorter, shoulder much lower than the Grendel, but still kind of pretty similar-ish. Now, one thing I should have mentioned, I do have quite a bit of loaded ammunition that my grandfather had loaded up, and I've got notes about exactly what's in them and all of that stuff, so we really need to kind of empty some brass before we can have any fun of our own. But like I said, we're going to load up 10 rounds just to, try out the process and see the tools that are involved. Now, the bullet selection's a little bit weird here. Unless you're into bench rest, you may not have heard of some of these before. My grandfather's go-to bullet seemed to be the 68 grain Uber, E-U-B-E-R. I did find a thread over at accurateshooter.com, the forums over there, where the phone number and address and all of that for Uber bullets is available. I think a lot of these are just, guys who compete and then decide to start making their own bullets and then decide to start selling them. They all look exactly the same, right? On the left, that's the Uber. Right next to it is a 68 grain Ulrich. This is the same sort of deal. I found a phone number and address and stuff over at accurateshooter.com in a forum thread. Just another small bullet maker that you order directly from. Okay, next to that, the third one over is the Bart's. This is a 58 grain Bart's. I think this one's called the Ultra. Now, Bart's is a little bit bigger. There is a website, bartsbullets.com, where you can go. I think he's got 22, 6mm, and even some 30 caliber offerings. So it seems to be a slightly bigger manufacturer there. And the last one on the right there is a 68 grain Berger, flat base target. So extremely similar bullets from all of the makers. They're all flat base. And this seems to be what my grandfather had narrowed down to what this gun really liked. Powder selection is similarly boring. Everybody shoots the same couple powders. You've got Vitavori N133, and I've actually got one of his old cans. Yeah, there you go. That's what the Vitavori packaging used to look like. This is Vitavori N133. Another popular option is Hodgdon H322, but my grandfather's main competition load was with Hodgdon Benchmark. 29.2 grains of Benchmark. Looks like it was what gave him the best performance. There are a couple others, like I saw that he had tested a little bit with Reloader 7. I think 8208 XBR is used sometimes. And as far as I know, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's one thing I should have mentioned at the very beginning of this video, and I meant to make a point of it. I have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. I don't know anything about this game. I've never shot a bench rest match in my life. I've fired a 6 PPC exactly 10 times this morning to sight in a scope. So take everything I say and do with a grain of salt, because everything I know is from just some basic research getting ready to do this video. So I could be way off. Now, he seemed to almost exclusively use GM 205M primers, the Federal Small Rifle Match primers. I think he had used some Remington 7.5s as well. Those seem to be the most common choices from what I've read. And this thing here is called an arbor press. Yeah, let me flip it around here. See the little handle here. This is what you use to do your neck sizing and your bullet seating. Now, I think some guys will actually, take this to their matches and weigh their charges and seat their bullets right there at the range. I guess that gives them the opportunity to tweak their charge weights a little bit or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how common that is. Like I said, my grandfather had quite a bit of ammunition preloaded, so I don't think he generally loaded at the shooting bench, but I don't think it's uncommon. So this is his set of dies and stuff. First up is this is an Ellie Wilson neck sizing die. It uses bushings and stuff, and we'll cover this here later once we're ready to load up a few rounds. And this guy here is the bullet seating die. So basically these just go in the arbor press and get smushed to put your rounds together. It's pretty cool stuff. Now, he's also got a Redding body die. This is 6mm PPC body die. So if it's not obvious, this would be used in, our standard reloading press. And this is used to size the body of the case and bump the shoulder. So every couple firings, you go ahead and run them through the body die. Now, what I found, and you'll see here in a little bit whenever we get to the loading process, these Ellie Wilson dies, the case goes up in here extremely tight. And the cases I chose to reload, I think they really probably needed run through the body die because they were hard to get in and out of the dies, out of the Ellie Wilson dies that I was using with the arbor press. Got a K&M neck turning tool and all of the various accessories that go along with it, like the handle and an expanding mandrel. Got a modified case for the Stony Point tool or these days, the Hornady overall length gauge. So I've got everything I need. As I mentioned, one of his better loads seemed to be the 29.2 grains of benchmark with the 68 grain Uber. And most of the bullets are broken down and put into smaller containers, and they're pre-sorted. Like this little can were 68.0 to 68.1 grains in weight and 0.842 to 0.845 in length. I assume that's probably pretty common. You buy a big batch of bullets and then sort them into batches before you start loading, Anything to tighten up the groups a little bit, right? So I think that's pretty much it, folks. So let's move on to the loading process. Okay, folks, let's get started. First of all, I want to look at the Ellie Wilson PPC neck die. So Ellie Wilson has a video on how to use these that is really good. It was posted a few years back. So I think I've got the process down, but you might want to check out their video as well. I'll be sure to link it at the end of this video. It comes with this little base thingy. And the way this works, the decapping pin actually kind of floats, like you leave it kind of loose. But let's look and see what's going on in here. If we pull out these two screws, out comes the decapper part. There's a screw on both sides, so that side and then that side, to where you set the pressure so that your decapping pin is sliding through halfway decent, but still, a little bit of friction going on there. And you'll notice right where we just took this off is where the bushings get installed. See if I can pop that out of there. There it is. This is a Redding 257. Now in his kit, he also had a 258 and a 259, but looking back through his notes, it seemed like he was testing and messing around with the 257 most recently. So that's what we'll use. We'll just use the 257, and it just sits right down in there. So let me pull it out though and grab a case that we need to resize. You can see primer's still in there. What you do is pop it in this end, and you kind of push it in there a little bit, and it should go just about flush. And they say, I do not have the bushing in there right now. So they say, I guess if it doesn't fit down in there pretty much all the way, then I guess you either need to bump your shoulder, or perhaps your chamber is too big for the way they cut this. This first one here we're looking at, this is a piece of Lapua 220 Russian brass. So that's in there pretty good. Hopefully I can get it out of there. But yeah, it's supposed to go in and out reasonably easy. These are right at the limit. Let's try and give it a little pressure here, see if we can get it to pop out. Okay, so I had to push against the table. So I'm assuming these are pretty close to needing that shoulder bumped. And this kit only sizes the neck. So if you need to bump the shoulder, this is a Redding body die that sizes the body and allows you to bump the shoulder without messing with the neck. So you'd bump your shoulder with these and then come back to this die and size the neck. All right, where were we? We've got our bushing installed. No, we don't. And they say that at least with the L.E. Wilson brand, you should be able to see the writing. I assume it's the same here with this Redding. This is the way it was installed the first time I opened it up. So the next step, we put our decapping thingy back in, and they tell you not to tighten these down all the way. So we'll get them close to tight, but not quite tight. There we go. So we've got a little bit of slop here. And then you take a case that's already been sized and decapped and push that guy in there to make sure you get the decapping pin aligned correctly. So now that we know that the decapping pin is aligned, we go ahead and finish tightening it down right there. So now we're back together and ready to go. Take that case out. That's one of the ones I already did as a practice run before I turned the camera on. But back to the one that we actually need to size and decap. The first step is we can go ahead and push the decapping pin out of the way a little bit and then put this guy in there as far as we can. Then we set it on the press. I need to adjust my arm on the press down a little bit. There we go. That should give us enough. So we set it under there, and this pushes the case down into the die, and it goes all the way down and makes contact, and that part of the process is done. So now the case was pushed up through that bushing. Then we flip it the other way around, and this will push out the primer. There it went, and it also pushes out the case, and there it is, comes right out. So the primer's gone and our neck is sized. So let's try and do this next one a little bit faster. Pop that in. Push it down. Flip it over. It's going to decap and then pop the brass out of the die. So that's pretty darn easy. Not a whole lot to it. So this second row of cases that I'm working through are Norma. There it is, Norma 6 PPC. Figured we'd try 5 of the Lapua and 5 of the Norma. This is actually a pretty darn fast process. L.E. Wilson makes these dies for pretty much any cartridge. Maybe I should pick up a set for a different cartridge that I shoot a little bit more often just to try them out. It's a pretty cool setup. All right, that's it. 10 cases in no time. Our primers, which you can't really see, get deposited out the bottom of that base. So that's all there is to it. So the next step I want to take with these is to just scrape out the primer pockets a little bit with a little Lee primer pocket scraper. Nothing crazy, just get most of the gunk out of there. And I guess I should probably chamfer that case mouth, maybe? Yeah, we'll just use a standard tool here. I don't want to go crazy. Just knock off any burrs and shine up the chamfer that's already there just to make sure that our bullet seating goes easily. And then I'm just going to install the primers with an RCBS hand priming tool. I'm sure the benchrest guys take a lot more care with this, getting the primer seating depth very precise perhaps. I know there are some tools in my grandpa's kit related to priming that I haven't really pulled out and played with yet. But hopefully this will be fine for our little test. Now I need a funnel, and I'll weigh out our 29.2 grain charges of benchmark. There we go. Let's see what the case fill. Let's see what the case fill looks like with this charge. Yep, right up into the bottom of the neck. Good deal. I'll get these weighed out and we'll be ready to seat bullets. All right, bullet seating is next, and this is the L.E. Wilson seating die, 6mm PPC. Unfortunately, L.E. Wilson doesn't have a video on this guy, but it seems pretty straightforward. The die has a chamber that the case goes up into, it sits on this little pedestal thingy, and then you've just got a seating stem. So it seems pretty straightforward. Seating stem has a lock screw on the side and then an adjustment screw down the center, and it's locked down. I'm just going to try seating a bullet and see where it puts us. So let me put the base up on there, set the case on the base, set the die over the case. I guess I probably should have set a bullet on top of it. I don't know. Can I just drop it down here without? Yeah, that works. And then on goes the seating stem. Let's see where it, yeah, so it stops about right there. Good. Let's see where this puts us. Try and get it centered under the arbor. I guess that's what you call that. And down it goes. That is taking way too much pressure. Like that took a lot of pressure. But it looks like it's seated. It didn't booger up the bullet. I don't see any copper getting scraped or anything. It might just be, you know, that 257 collet in the sizing die. I guess it's just a lot of neck tension, I guess. All right, so now luckily, you know, I've still got lots of his stuff that he had loaded. So what I've done is grab my Hornady bullet comparator, and it looks like 1.727 is the target. So let's see where this guy's at. 1.729. Yeah, actually there it is. I think that's fine. That's pretty much the same. Good deal. I say we just roll with it. I mean, I wouldn't have minded the opportunity to get to mess around with this and adjust it a little bit and show you guys, but I mean, it's pretty simple. If that number was wrong, we would just loosen that screw, screw that one down just a touch and tighten up the set screw, try it again, and keep going back and forth until we got the number we were looking for. You don't need a demonstration of that, do you? Okay, there's the case, there's that guy, there's a bullet, and the seater, and press. Yeah, I'm thinking these guys are going to need a body die next time because they were a little tight in the sizing die and they're a little bit tight in this bullet seating die. The last, like you can actually, it's so tight in there and this fits so tightly, you can actually feel suction and pressure. The last one, I just put the seater back in there and the air pressure was enough to blow it out, but this one didn't want to come out so easy. Let's see if I can extremely gently just get under the rim and coax it out. Nope, that doesn't seem to want to work. All right, here's a decapping pin. I'm just going to slide this down onto the top of the bullet and just very gently, well, kind of gently. It didn't take that much force. Make sure we didn't booger up the me-plat. Nah. Nope, that didn't hurt anything. Let's make sure that our cartridge-based ogive is still 1.727. Right there it is. So this is pretty easy here, right? I was afraid we might run into complications. But it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Okay, those first 5 pieces were the Lapua brass. Let's try this Norma and see if it acts any differently. I can't imagine it would. Here we go. Yep, feels just the same. And our resulting overall length is the same if I wiggle it just right. Yeah, trust me. There you go. There it is, 1.727. So I think that covers the process here, folks. I'm going to get these other 4 seated. And unless something interesting happens, I will just see you guys on the range. All right, folks, it's time to see if we can shoot a group with this thing. If there are any benchrest viewers watching, they are probably cringing inside out right now. I don't have a front rest that will fit this 4-in. It's big and wide and flat. So before the next range trip, I'm going to see if I can get my grandpa set up. But for the time being, what I've had to do is I removed the little ear bag out of this, you know, standard little Caldwell front rest, and I've got a flat bag in here. So this guy's kind of going to be able to flop around a little bit, and this is certainly not a proper way to do this. It also gives a good built-in excuse in case we can't shoot a decent group today. Now, another thing I'm not sure what to do about is cleaning. So I did clean the gun after I sighted in the scope, so it's clean right now. Now, as far as I know, most benchrest shooters clean these guns a lot, like constantly. Shoot a 5-shot group, clean it, shoot an oil shot into a sight or target or into the berm, and then shoot your 5-shot group, and then clean it again and do the whole same thing over again. I didn't bring my cleaning gear out here, but I might take a break. Maybe we'll shoot 10, 15, 20 shots, and then maybe I'll take a break, go in, and run some patches through it. I'm not really sure on that. I don't want to like do something detrimental here, you know, but I also don't want to be ridiculous about it when I'm in my backyard just having some fun. So, all right, let's get shooting. The target is at 100 yards. The dots are 3/4 of an inch in diameter. We're going to start with some of my grandpa's loads in Lapua brass. And then once we get comfortable, we'll switch over to the ones we just loaded. I'm also not going to worry about a fouling shot. We'll just start shooting a group. So let's see what happens. God, that trigger is just absurd. So no ejector here. You kind of got to reach in there and dig out your fired piece. Yeah, I didn't have my shoulder on the gun enough in that one. It's a weird balance of trying to get a little bit of shoulder pressure on the buttstock while at the same time getting your face behind the scope and getting ready to pull the trigger, all without screwing up that sight picture. All right, a little bit more shoulder this time. All right, so except that first oil shot, the rest of them stacked right in there nicely. I guess we probably won't have any better barrel conditions than right now. So let's go ahead and switch over to our own loads. And we'll start with the 5 that we loaded in Lapua brass. The temperature is just above freezing. It's about 33, 34 degrees, and there's no wind whatsoever. All right, I'm gonna really try and make these count. Oh yeah, not too shabby for our first 5, 6 PPC hand loads, right? Man, that's awesome. So I just took a break for a couple minutes to go in and get my fingers warmed up. Like I mentioned, it's right at freezing, and a cold finger and a 2-ounce trigger are not a good combination, man. There is no way I can put into words just how light this freaking trigger is. It's pretty incredible. So, all right, let's move on and shoot a 5-shot group with the hand loads we loaded in Norma brass. I pulled that last shot just a touch. It went off just a touch sooner than I wanted it to. So I couldn't be happier with our first, 10 rounds of hand loads. Seems like we did something right after all. So let's go ahead and shoot 1 or 2 more. We're back to Grandpa's loads. This row is Lapua brass. So I keep catching myself like putting too much body input into it, like a little too much shoulder or a little bit like too much pressure here with the side of my hand, by the trigger and the cheek pressure. Like I can see that this is a very complicated process to get your shooting position just the way you want it and keep it consistent. And doing it here on a crappy bag setup isn't really helping things. All right, that group turned out okay. All right, 1 more group. And hopefully I'm not screwing this up here. This is from 2 partial rows in the ammo box. 3 are from 1 row, 2 are from the next row. They're all Lapua brass. Hopefully they're not different loads. We'll keep an eye on that 4th and 5th shot, see if they go into the same group with the first 3. Well, that was the fourth one that seemed to go into the group. All right. I think we'll call that done. That's 25 shots through it without cleaning, so I don't want to go any farther than that. Plus, man, I'm kind of like exhausted. That's pretty intense, like shooting and aiming and everything when you know that pretty much all of the group size down there are mistakes by you. You know, if you could do everything just perfect, the group would be tiny, so that kind of makes every single shot really an intense experience. It's pretty cool. I really enjoyed it, but I can imagine it gets really, really intense in competition. So, all right, let's get packed up. Let's get back to the bench. Let's measure these groups. All right, folks, let's review these groups. I measured them two different ways. I used my normal way, which is the on-target software, and I also did it manually with some calipers. And the numbers I got with the calipers were just a touch better. And I think the error comes from the fact that I used the dots being 3/4 of an inch as the reference in the on-target software, and it seemed to be about 20 thousandths off. So whatever. Here's the first group. On target says 0.626. My calipers say 0.593. And of course, this is the one we had that first shot that went low. That was the clean barrel shot, the oil shot. If we dropped that one shot, the other four went into 0.169. So this could have been a really good group if we had shot that first shot just off into the dirt and then started our group. You never know. The second group were the rounds we loaded in Lapua brass. On target says 0.241. My calipers say 0.230. This is better than I dared hope for. I knew the gun was, capable of this and even better, but I thought it might take a little bit more practice to get us there. So early success is a good thing. The next group was also our hand loads that we did in the Norma brass. On target says 0.329. My calipers say 0.328. So definitely another good one. The fourth group, we went back to my grandpa's hand loads, and this was a 0.338 or a 0.320. And the last group opened up a little bit to a 0.407 or a 0.424, somewhere in that range. So I couldn't be happier. This was a ton of fun, and that's a pretty impressive little target for me. I'm thinking that second group, the 0.230, that might be the best group I've ever shot. Try to remember, we've come pretty close, like in 223 and 6.5 Creedmoor. I think we've shot groups in the twos here on the channel with both of those, but we've definitely never followed up a 0.2 with a couple of 0.3s. I don't really know where to go from here. You can just ignore all the stuff here on the bench. I'm in the middle of filming a different video, and I'm too lazy to clear it all off. Actually, if you want to know what I'm working on next, that might give you some clue. But as far as the 6 PPC goes, I don't know what to do from here. Guess it'll depend on your reaction and whether this video gets any views. I thought it was a lot of fun, but I'm afraid it might not appeal to that many people. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Any of you guys who shoot bench rest, please feel free down in the comments, correct any stupid things I said, or fill in basic information that I missed, or highlight any mistakes I made in the reloading process. Hopefully this turns out as, a basic overview of how the bench rest guys go about their reloading process. Maybe someday we'll rebarrel this gun and chamber it in something else. I guess the easy one would be 6.5 Grendel. It'd be a little bit stupid, but I think it would be a fun test platform for testing bullets and stuff in the Grendel. I wonder how well a setup like this would shoot with that cartridge. I don't know. That's kind of stupid. We'll see. All right, folks, I think that's it. I appreciate you joining me, and I will see you next time.